on? What's up, good people? Sharon, what's up? The legend. Much respect to you. Much respect due. Now, let's get things into perspective. Because it must be said. On a serious note, this is disturbing, B. This is really disturbing. I'm telling you, fresh off the pages. This has been disturbing to hear. Brandon Marshall is one of, like, a wide receiver to me who underachieved his entire NFL career. Him and Jay Cutler was supposed to be a tandem that was gonna tear up the league. Then those two imploded. Jay is more the laid-back, quiet, moaning guy. Brandon's the loud, boisterous wide receiver. Jay Cutler ended up leaving and won out. And then you had Brandon Marshall, who won it out. Right? That's the way it went. Now, where does these problems lie? Yeah, see, we're going to get to the mental health situation too. Because I'm getting tired of that too. And it's okay that you're using mental health as, and bringing awareness to it, but you're using it as a crutch, Brandon Marshall. And he's been using that since he was playing in the league. He started talking about his mental health. He was the first mental health person I knew ever. Because I swear to God, every time he blow up, they was like, well, he's battling mental health. He was about to have a domestic violence charge. Here come mental health. He's taking classes. He was the first one everybody was proud of because he was like, I take full responsibility. This ain't nobody but me. I have mental issues. I didn't know till I got help. I'm going to therapy. And, I'm getting better. It's a process. But everywhere he goes, there's something wrong. And you start seeing that something wrong starts to affect business. I was more than happy when I saw Ryan Clark stand up to him. When Ryan Clark stood up to him, because he constantly been letting these little jabs go. Because Ryan Clark, his mind is thinking on a higher plane. He's more focused. Of course, Brandon Marshall's gonna call him corny because he want to seem cool. Well, what's corny about anything Ryan Clark has done? Really? They're like, oh, you just talking about Ryan Clark because Kwame Brown was on the Pivot podcast. I know that's how some idiots think. Do you know? I suggested and tried to reach out to the Pivot podcast, and I talked to Kwame. I sent Kwame Brown a video from the Pivot podcast and said, this is the platform that's best for you. Before he even went on there was an interview they did with the former Miami Heat second round draft pick. Beasley. And we watched that interview. I sent the interview to Kwame. And I said, Kwame, these are the people you need to do the interview with. If you're going to sit down and do an interview, these are the ones. So he watched that interview and was like, yeah, man, I love the way they handled that. And I reached out to them. They didn't respond back to me, but they had already been reaching out to Kwame. Kwame been reached out to by like everybody, but he just didn't accept him. So that had nothing to do with, because Kwame went on the show. No, it's because I'm familiar with these shows, with who the people are. And because of that setting, I said, that's the right setting for you. I was the one sent that to him and said that to him. I ain't saying he did that because I said that, but he eventually ended up choosing him. He saw the interview, he liked it too, and he made that decision. Everybody's talking about mental health these days because, and I'm gonna explain why that's happening also. Because some people unfortunately use tragedy as a crutch, or something very serious as to their benefit. It's very unfortunate, but that happens. Now, Ryan Clark has done nothing but uplift, helps these young players in the league. He does so much stuff off the camera that a lot of people just don't see it or notice it or pay any attention to it, of what's really going on around the surface. Now, Brandon Marshall has been mad at Ryan Clark because he claims, I told Ryan Clark, do you own that podcast you do? Because you could move that on I Am Athlete. Now, if he moves his podcast on I Am Athlete, he's giving power to Brandon Marshall. And he's watching the show. He's watching how everything's been playing out with Shannon and all those guys. And he's seen what's happening. And they decided to go in another direction. They wanted to join with Ryan Clark and start a podcast. And he called him and told him about it. Like, look, they want to do this with me and do this. So he, as a man, talked to him. And they had a conversation on the phone. Brandon Marshall never speaks on this. He never said I had a conversation on the phone with him. He never acknowledges that. Then he gonna say, I saw him at the camp because he was still doing the I Am athlete camp, training camp. Man, he was like, man, that dude walked past me. And he said, that's another lie. I'll never walk past a dude. He said, I went up to him, shook his hand and everything. He said, I told him on the phone, if this is a conflict of interest, then I'll find someone else for you. They could come in and do the training. And he said, after shaking my hand, the last time he stayed in his office and sent his assistant down to tell me he didn't want me there. You see, that's where the problems lie, with me and with everybody else. Because this goes along with them saying, like Fred Taylor and the rest of them, and Shannon saying that this dude's a coward. He's a straight coward. He's afraid to approach these people in their face and tell them what's what. And he makes up all of these different lies. Ryan Clark the reason why he's on this tour of going on all these podcast shows and talking about them. They've been gone now for almost, a year, almost 2 years. Why are you bringing this back up? He done brought this up on like 3 different podcast shows. I didn't even know Tariq Hill had a podcast show. Tariq Hill got a podcast show. This dude over here got a podcast show. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? This is getting nuts. Everybody had a podcast show. So, oh yeah, it was getting crazy. So what did I do? I did what I normally do. I analyzed the situation, how it presented itself. Ryan Clark has always been a stand-up individual and carried himself like a man. Brandon Marshall, when he played here in the Chicago Bears, we saw him plenty of times. We saw him at Cubby Bear. He was the same individual. Hey, Rich. How you doing? Ooh-wee. How you doing, buddy?
Didn't win enough money last night, huh?
Oh, no. I'm still in the bonus.
Oh, you're on a bonus?
Yep.
I hope it's still in there for you.
Yeah, I hope so, too. All righty. Now, exactly, it's jealousy, because he was thinking like, man, they gonna fail and then they gonna break up. Okay, where's Shady McCoy? Where's the girl? Where's Aisha? Where's Ocho Cinco? Where's Pac-Man Jones? Now, this is after Shannon and them left. Ryan Clark never had nothing to do with it. He never spoke on the I Am Athlete situation. And the reason why he never spoke on the I Am Athlete? Hey, salute, KB. The reason that he never spoke about I Am Athlete is because he said this wasn't my story to tell. Ryan Clark wasn't going to jump in the middle of something, even though it involved Fred and them. He stayed out of it. He didn't push Channing and all those guys to go against Brandon Marshall. And if you hear when they talk about him, they say, and they talk about their show, they say the difference between this show and I Am Athlete is none of us here have an ego. None of them. That's why it works. When one person feel they bigger than everybody else, this is what leads to the problems. Every time. When one person feel that they bigger than the other person, this happens. When he played for the Bears, the players on the team ended up not liking him because he would do antics. Good morning. Not right now. Cool. All right, thank you. If you want soccer content, you got to go to One Crack News. We talked about Manchester United. But I knew right away from him being here in Chicago, the way he freaks out and throws tantrums rather than to deal with things as a man. So these things became a problem. And once they became a problem, That's why a lot of people over there said they couldn't deal with what was happening. Oh, I was 100% one of those people. Yeah, it was. Can you turn that TV down some? Thank you. So, yeah, that's good enough. Thank you. Now, the scenarios that went on with him is that Brandon Marshall has always been the guy who told half truths. He gonna tell a half truth. He ain't gonna tell the whole story. He gonna tell whatever it is to glorify himself. It's always the man that don't talk about it. That person seemed to be more in control of what's happening. So he started right off not talking about the situation. And you said, well, why did he start off not talking about it? Because it was clear. He didn't want to talk about it due to the fact that Ryan Clark didn't want to talk about it because he said, I am athlete. That's their story to tell. But he kept taking these little jabs at Ryan Clark and lying. And he was like, I never, ever walk past you. I'm a man. I'll come up to you. Hey, shake your hand. And now, like he said, if this wasn't successful, they wouldn't even talk about it. You know, and that's the problem that a lot of people are having with it. It's that Brandon Marshall has had all these people around him. Where are all those other people at? Where's Shannon and Fred and Pac-Man Jones? Where is Shady McCoy? Where is who there? Pac-Man Jones, Ocho Cinco. Everybody's gone. It's just you sitting in a chair by yourself interviewing somebody. And got a moderator there. Now, if you want to do it that way, that's fine. If you want it, I am athlete to just be Brandon Marshall, that's fine. But to keep talking about, I did this, I put in all this money, I did all that, they wasn't putting up no money. When Fred said, bro, if you need money, let me know. I got you. I'll give you some money. And you didn't let him know anything. Then down the line, you talking about, well, my evaluation, I'm evaluating that it's $500,000. It was just crazy. You know, the numbers that they were coming up with. So you start looking at the product of what they were putting out and what they were trying to build. Right. And you start seeing people, how they work with each other on podcast shows. And you could see why they had such a buzz and it fizzled out on I Am Athlete. If you go to I Am Athlete right now, it's almost dead. It's for real. The channel is like dead. Nobody's really over there anymore. And you look at the Pivot podcast, they're soaring. Why? Because they don't have any egos. They don't. Everybody check their ego. Nobody jealous of the next man. The reason why all these people try to get like me to go to war with Kwame Brown and fall out with all these people, because they used to that behavior with people who don't think well. They don't have anything on the ball. They used to betraying each other, stabbing each other in the back. You see it on this social media, on the YouTube platform all the time. They fall out with this person, get friends with that person, then run over there to that friend, and now they back cool, and they run back over. It's just goofy. I'm just like, I ain't gonna be friends with you. You said that about my mama. Like, me and you might have to fight in the yard if you like my brother or family, but I don't even know you. So I don't need you around at all. You see this snake-like behavior from all these people. Do I think the beef ever gonna end? Yeah, no. The thing is that they live right by each other. That's Shannon and Brandon, they kids used to play together. That's how close they live together. But they don't do that no more. But I don't think Fred and Brandon will ever be cool with them. Like they're cordial, like they just don't speak to each other. That's just how it is. They just won't speak to each other, period. But they don't need to. Once you work with somebody, you know them more than anybody else. It's like once you work with somebody and live with them, you probably know them better than a lot of other people in life. But Brandon Marshall is the type that alienates other people. Now, you ain't heard Pac-Man Jones' side of the story. You ain't heard everybody else's side of the story. This is why he went at Shannon Sharpe. He threw Shannon Sharpe's name in there and called him out, but wouldn't say anything about Stephen A. Smith. You had Stephen A. Smith on your show, so you ain't gonna say nothing about him, but call out Shannon Sharpe about talking about athletes. Are you kidding me? This is why I don't respect Brandon Marshall, because he's a hypocrite to the first degree. How are you gonna sit there and call out Shannon Sharpe, who actually done something for athletes, because he was actually an athlete, and you gonna get on him, but because Stephen A. Smith is cool with you and you need his connections and you want to keep him in your circle, you gonna go on I Am Athlete and he came on your show, you don't want to mention him in that light. No. You want to mention Shannon Sharpe. No. So why did you target Shannon Sharpe? Oh, it's clear. You targeted Shannon Sharpe. Yeah, he came after Shannon Sharpe because he knows Shannon Sharpe and Ocho show is taking off. The Pivot podcast is taking off. Ocho left him, went with Shannon Sharpe, and taking off. But what does he tell you? It just logistically wasn't making sense. That's why he left I Am Athlete. He told you, I can't do it no more. Because logistically, this is not making sense. You know, they just had a baby. You know, so he got a little baby and stuff with his wife. So he's like, look, we got a baby. So I need to be over here and paying attention. I can't just be dipping out on the show. You know, so I just can't do it. You know, logistically, it's not making sense. Brandon told him he understood and everything else. But I hate when somebody tell me they understand something and they, yeah, I get it, man. And then as soon as you say, all right, you think everything cool, then they talking crap about you behind your back. Like you ran out on them. It's like, dog, you could have told that to me on the phone. Fred didn't like it because they had traded words, you know, back and forth. Him and Brandon Marshall. And it got really hot. So they had some bad beef. Like those two probably never be friends again in life. But if they ever sat down I'm quite sure they would come to an understanding. But Brandon Marshall's situation is, it's all about his ego. Because if you looked at the show, the way they used to film the show, it was always like it was Brandon Marshall's show. Like he's letting you know it's his show instead of it's our show. He's all the one standing up, loud, boisterous, and the way they would show the camera and focus on him all the time was like, he's running the ship. And that kind of ego is problematic when you're trying to build something. Like you're trying to put yourself like, I'm bigger than everybody here. And that was a problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Ryan Clark approached him like a man. He called and talked to Brandon Marshall over the phone. And they had a conversation. You see, that's what I don't like either, is that he knew he had that conversation with him. And the same thing he's falling out with everybody. He's going on this world tour on other people's podcast shows to talk about them because they're successful. And they're taking off. And that's what Ryan Clark said. If this don't work, if we not having success, they ain't gonna talk about us. It was just like, this is a similar situation when nobody really worked with him at all. I didn't. If Kwame Brown wasn't viral and trending, Gilbert Arenas wouldn't even pay no attention to him. He wouldn't have said a word. If I didn't have 200,000 subscribers, Gilbert Arenas wouldn't even been bothered with us. He wouldn't have said a word about me. He wanted the confrontation. He wanted to go back and forth. He was trying to build himself up and keep him going so everybody could stay glued to him. Because he wanted to know, what's the magic sauce? What is this? He was always constantly asking these type of questions. Oh, I'm writing down, I'm taking notes. He's watching my numbers more than me. When the M.A. Udoka situation, like, Carcino had a video, I swear. No, he had about 2,000 people in the chat. It said that. I don't know how it got there, but he got there. I watched. I'm like, so exactly. Now I told you, Brandon Marshall was here with the Chicago Bears. He was right around the corner here at the place when they used to call it the Cubby Bear. It was a Chicago Cubs Bears / bar. Like the players go there at night and everything else. Wow. And he was freaking out over his girl wanting to go to California to do some work. And it's like, let her go she got to go there for work. Like, what do you got a problem with? He was mad because she was going earlier than he was happier with. And he was freaking out about it. And throwing a fit, going nuts, just tantrum after tantrum after tantrum. So I'm like, and the thing is, he kept complaining with the coaching staff. He wanted out. Blaming everybody. But then, when everything blows up on him, the media start turning on him and everything else, he turned to mental health. And this is what I hate. Well, my mental health, and I've been an advocate for mental health and doing all these things, and I'm bettering myself. They always use mental health nowadays. Oh, that's a crutch. That's a crutch. And that's sad, but he uses it as a crutch. Yeah. If you listen to him and look at the people he surrounds himself with and the people he always praising. He's always praising these liberal type of individuals or athletes or celebrities. That's who Oh, I talked to LeBron them the other day. LeBron people. Oh, I talked to Mav Carter. I talked to all these people he talked to. They are on the agenda of the left. And he talks like a politician. It's always a scapegoat. It's never him. And if you box him in the corner, mental health is coming up. It never fails. It gave him a second pass. When he went to rehab, that's when they were like, he went and changed himself and he bettered himself. Chicago embraced him. It changed his whole persona. He had this whole layout. He got on sports shows. He did NFL Network. He was on Fox. And this is what kills me. It's like, dude, you was on Fox with Nick Rome. Every day. Nick Rome is just as worse as anybody I've ever seen because he's never played the game. He tears down Kobe Bryant, anybody for LeBron James. You sat there on Fox Sports 1 after Chris Carter was fired. You came on the show and you was trying to basically take over the show. He was on the show. And I'm like, if you go back and listen to any of them, when they get ready to get off the show, Brandon talk up all the time. Nobody else got a chance to say a word and close the show out. He was doing that constantly. Then he said, they wanted to bring me back, but I don't want it. You wanted the main chair. You was thinking this is an audition for you to be the main chair. They was like, no, Nick finna be the main chair. You could be the two. But the main chair is already spoken for. And then you was like, I don't need this. I can leave. And they was like, okay. Your ego, man. And that's what gets you in trouble. But yet, you never said anything about Nick Wright. You went straight to Shannon Sharpe. Only because Ocho Cinco's over there. You think everybody's stupid? They know what's up. Your jealousy of other people's success is the reason why you have all of these bad things happen around you in your podcast, in your circle, and what you're building. That's the reason you never played in a playoff game when you played in the NFL. All the talent in the world was on your team, and y'all never got to the playoffs because of your attitude. You was a team killer. Well, when you don't do what I think is in what I think is the best interest of the show, and you doing what's best for Brandon Marshall, there's gonna be problems. And I just think it's a coward's way when you don't face people and you do all the stuff behind the scenes, behind the doors. Like you couldn't talk to Ryan Clark. He came up to you as a man. You said he walked past you. He never walked past you. Like Ryan Clark wouldn't do that. He came up to him as a man. He said, I shook that man's hand and everything. Then the next time I come back, rather than face me, he gonna send an assistant down to say, tell him I don't want him in the building. He's like, I gave you the opportunity to say that the first time around. You had that chance the first time. Said, if you don't want me around, I could find somebody. Like, if this is going to be a problem moving forward, I could bring somebody in to replace. I can get you somebody else to help these kids. because I don't want to leave these kids out there, letting this podcast thing get in the way of that. Yeah, Brandon's got a lot of work he got to still do on himself. This inner jealousy that he has, that's something that's rooted in him. One-dimensional. Shouts out to Kwame Brown Bus Life too for stopping over here. Appreciate it. We never gonna, that's what I keep telling people, we are never gonna fall out. I don't ever see us falling out because we don't have the type of mentality. Some people are like, oh, it's inevitable. They're gonna blow up. Y'all been saying that for 2-3 years. Why do people gotta fall out? Grown men got things on their mind. They mindset is a lot different than what other people do. We not really social media people either. Like none of us built ourselves up or in life around social media. We use that as a tool now to communicate with people, but we didn't grow up being social media people. We were outside. We have real lives. Most of these people didn't get started or they got on here. They got on here to try to get money and get rich. We first started this thing, there was no money in it for us. None. There was no money for nobody. That's how long we've been on here. This is just a communication tool at first. Kwame didn't say, oh man, I'm going to make a lot of money and go viral if I do this. No, he said how he felt and it went viral. Nah, I don't run play with it. They tried to get me to run play, and I was not with it. I was like, no way. I don't want to have a fake beef with nobody. Now, I can see if we going to say, hey, let's go back and forth. We going to rib with one another, let's do it. But I'm not finna set up a fake beef with somebody. Yeah, I started mine in 2005. My first YouTube page, I signed up for it in 2005, and I didn't upload anything, I think, until 2006. And that was it. And from that point on, I started giving people information on boxing. And from that point on, it just started taking off. Now, these things take different turns when you start thinking of progression and going and moving in different circles. As the Pivot podcast keep growing, they keep getting sponsorships, they keep having great shows and moving forward. When you have somebody that's really on your team and really is dedicated to helping grow something, there's nothing like it. Everybody played their position, and it was a perfect fit. This reminds me of the Joe Budden podcast. This is exactly reminds me of Joe Budden's podcast. And the main reason it reminds me of Joe's podcast is because Joe was the main person who had that big overinflated ego. And yeah, Joe had a name. You remember Joe Budden from the one-hit wonder song he had, Pump It Up. Then he started getting on all these reality shows. My girlfriend's a junkie. And there's Joe Budden. I remember these crazy shows. And Joe was on these shows looking all whacked out of his mind on drugs. and he's doing all this craziness. And the same thing happened. He got his homeboys to do the show with him. He brought in Rory and Maul. The show went nowhere, right? The show wasn't going anywhere. Wasn't doing nothing. And all of a sudden, the show started to get better with those two added to the show. Maul was the guy that didn't agree with Joe on nothing he said. Rory was the guy that made logical sense out of all the ranting Joe Budden would do. He would give you the logic answer in case anybody had common sense in trying to figure out what the heck Joe is talking about. He would keep Joe on point when Joe goes way off subject and go on to another topic. Rory's job was to center them back because Joe would go all off the point and he'd be, oh, well, where was I? We were talking about the album. Yeah, the album. So they needed that balance in there. And whatever he said, Maul was like the hater. He just didn't like nothing. So you had a balance that worked. But the main problem that they ran into is the fact that as the show grew, so did Joe's ego. Now Joe believes the show is big because of him. And then they changed the name of the podcast to the Joe Budden Podcast instead of remaining like, I'll name this podcast later. They ended up allowing that to be the Joe Budden Podcast. They allowed him to get a deal with Patreon. They allowed him to get a deal with Cash App. The Joe Budden get a deal with Cash App. Joe Budden gets a deal with them. Joe Budden started taking episodes of the show and putting it on his Joe Budden YouTube channel. And then told them, well, you know what? You guys can use the episodes on your show. That way we make it even. And they was like, nah, I don't work that way. And Joe had to eventually pay them because they had to get lawyers. They realized, oh, wait a minute, we need some lawyers. So now that they got lawyers, they went ahead and got themselves in position now. So they had to get paid likeness rights and everything, from the show. And because the show wasn't making a lot of money, Joe gave them partnership, said, you guys are going to be partners. You guys are equity partners. So he gave them equity in the show because he knew he couldn't afford to pay them as employees. So he gave them an equity deal. And then when the show blows up to the point where the equity is going to make them a lot of money because they're now partners, now he wants them to go to being employees. Where do they do this at? And out of friendship to him. Hello? Out of friendship to him, they decide, and this is where it gets crazy. Out of friendship to him, they come up with the idea, the infinite idea of, you know what? Let's go ahead and walk away. I couldn't walk away from that. I'm sorry. I couldn't walk away from that kind of money. They walked away and started their own podcast. And yet and still, who keeps talking about whom? Joe keeps talking about them. And then they have to respond. He throws a sneak diss their way. And then they respond. Whenever their numbers get low, he comes up with a way to keep himself in some controversy. Or he'll go to Rory and Maul and say something about them. But it's the same situation. Ego. And you think the show was built up and was big because of you. Now, Joe was able to survive it because he had so many years with those guys. All the deals he had in place was because of Ian Mall's success. Now, look who he got. He went, and when you separate with somebody and you complain like they were the bare minimum, like he disrespected them as their value to the show as being the bare minimum brothers, you replaced them with the below minimum brothers. You didn't go up, you went down. You went and just grabbed two of your homeboys that's always standing on the side of you. Yeah, whatever, Joe. And bring them on the show. And that didn't bring the value to the show that you thought. So that's why you went and added more faces on the show. You brought in Melissa Ford. You brought in Queens Flip. You brought in, you had to get other people on the show because you know these brothers might be gone. So you can etch them on out and then reduce the show down to about 3 or 4. You got 6 people now. How long's that gonna last? On a podcast show, everybody wants to get paid some money. How long will that last? Not rooting on their downfall, just pointing out the obvious. Knowing who the host is, knowing how it works. You've seen a lot of their frustrations, the same things that Rory and Maul was going to. You've seen a lot of that blow up on the show because he has another oversensitive friend. I'll take a Bud Light. Yeah, he's got an super sensitive friend. So when you got an overly super sensitive friend, this is going to be the case. Yeah, just keep it. All right. Yeah, those brothers are telling the truth. You see, all of these things that was happening over there is Joe was equating it to him. It was, I did this, I did that, I did this, I. When they start using those terminology, disrespecting what's going on around him. Ooh, Cino finna get some money. What would he get? Oh, damn, it better be 100. There we go, $100. All right, Dragon Lady. All right, get things back on track. It's not that it's corny, it's because he felt he got the money already. He's landed. But you got that off the strength of the other brothers. If they ever took him back to court, this wouldn't even be the case no more. It wouldn't. They wouldn't care about it. They walked away from millions. They take this thing to court, they would win. They could have bankrupted Joe's whole show. Joe wouldn't have been in a position. Had they sued him for trying to make them employees from an equity deal? Come on. And for Brandon Marshall, if Ryan Clark did anything wrong to you, which you know he didn't, whenever a man calls you and tells you what the deal is, it's not his fault that Shannon and Fred would rather be with him than work with you. And the countless other people that then left you It must be something with you. This man talked to you like a man. And I know he did. Ryan Clark would never do that. He would never do that. In a million years, nothing about who he is as a man would sit there and say he would not approach you and have a conversation with you. He would just walk past you. He just like wouldn't let you lie on his name no more. And like Shannon said, Shannon was like, man, there's no way. This dude tells so many lies. It don't even make sense for him to do that. Oh, we in the money now. Boom. We got the eggs. Yeah, I got 3 in a row. All right, we in the money now. Let's go. Let's get to that money. Blow the 5. Ooh. Oh, no. Oh, gosh. 45 at least. $15. $15, that's just another beer. That was low down. Oh, no, this is the big one. Oh, dirty. We supposed to get to the money. Come on now. Nope. I knew the Pivot podcast was better than I Am Athlete immediately. When I saw that interview they did with Michael Beasley, and I sent that to KB, and I was like, this is the place you should go here, man. They are really good at the interview. I'll take the $62. There we go. Come on, Dragon Lady. Keep it popping, Dragon Lady. Yeah, we watched that. I said, this is a perfect set. If you go interview with somebody, this is it. It's the best, most comfortable, like, vibe, like, with real people surrounding you. I Am Athlete, they just gonna want to talk about Stephen A all damn day. They're gonna want to talk about, all this other stuff to try to, what they say, heat up the coils or whatever and keep the beef going or whatever. That I can see that with Brandon Marshall cutting Kwame off every 5 seconds so he can go on a mountain long rant. Making it about him. Oh, definitely. So when it all said and done, you see the Pivot podcast and what it does and how they put in position to try to make people look bad. That where you see that at? The Pivot podcast, they've never put anybody in a position to look bad or trash an athlete or try to get the athlete to trick them up into doing something they don't want to do. They don't do that there. Ryan Clark had never really spoken with Gilbert Arenas except for when he tried to reach out and try to say, Kwame said this about me on this show. I want that taken off. Y'all need to edit that out y'all's show. And he was like, and then he took a text message that he had with Shannon and switched it up to never, took out what Shannon said and tried to, all the conversation he had to try to make it look like Shannon was going against Kwame, just to try to prove a point. He was like, I don't even want to deal with a person like that. And Ryan Clark was right. He was 100% right. I wouldn't even want to deal with nobody like Gilbert Arenas. He was 100% right. That dude is not real. He's like a clown. I would just X him out of my life. I was like, that makes sense. Because he really doesn't add any value. All he was like, it was fun kicking him in the face because he just kept asking for it. He would keep coming around and keep asking for another person with an overinflated ego. He kept coming around, forgetting his past, and then we'll kick him in the face with his past stuff he just forgot all about. I mean, Gail, did you remember what you were doing with the White House? So I gotta kick him in the face. You know, it's like, man, I don't want to. You just keep doing this. You keep throwing the alley-oop. I just gotta let the public know. All right, we back blowing fire. That's what I'm talking about. Blow some fire around here. Let's get to the money. Let's get to the money. 150. God damn it. All right, Dragon Lady. Dragon Lady kicking in that money. Yeah, okay. His head too big? Obviously. His head is extremely big. But they kept it cordially. For them to be neighbors, and for them to keep it cordial the way they've been doing it is ideal. But Brandon has aligned himself with these liberals and this mental health and running this whole gambit of political agendas. So that's why I already know what type of dude he is. I seen him here when he played with the Chicago Bears. He's selfish, but he portrays as if he cares about the people. But everything is self-centered. He's Brett Favre. He cared about the people by asking for money. I just asked for money. I didn't know where they were getting it from. But what he was doing was self-centered around his daughter. But he wants the state to pay for his daughter. They're like, you better stop. Brett Favre sent you a letter too. Right, and I love Brett Favre as a player. But what he did to the state of Mississippi, in my opinion, is a crime. And his text messages that are coming out is basically indicatively saying he was asking, would I get in trouble? Would they find out where the money came from? How you gonna explain that one, Brett? All right, Dragon Lady is back. Come on, Dragon Lady. Keep blowing that fire. Oh, no, don't go. Dog it. $22. Come on, Dragon Lady. Oh, no, I'm good right now. Okay. You like Biggie video on the Patreon? Biggie versus Jay-Z? Yep. Yeah, we expose a lot about Jay-Z. Good thing he ain't on my Patreon. He been shut it down. Oh no, Ticket TV, shouts out to him. Dreamers Pro. Yeah, welcome to HD IITV, Jag Sports with Jose Rodriguez. Yeah, we always get them love. I just don't do it all the time at the end of the videos. I say it in the middle of the video. Sometimes I say it in the beginning of the video. Support all these dudes. Mondo Black TV. Angela Stanton King. Alright, come on, blow the fire, Dragon, man. Boom, there we go, blow the fire. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, come on now. $18. $18. What am I do with $18? Relax, come in, play a few rounds. So thanks for everybody. KB showing up. Yeah, man, I get back in the panel one day, man. I've just been really busy lately. So as you can see, Sino ain't really been to bed yet. So past my bedtime. So thanks and shout outs to everybody. Hopefully you guys are blessed. Thanks for everybody who super chatted. Thanks for everybody who hit up my Cash App, Carcino for Life. Don't forget to hit up the Patreon. We got a lot of stuff going on. We still finna talk business and investing, tax deductible situations, tax codes that makes it legal, so you can know it ain't nothing scamming. I'm actually giving you the tax codes. I gotta get KB the tax codes too, because I actually have them. Oh yeah, we did one on the Patreon already. All of that's on the Patreon. We did live stream 09. Straight like that. So anyway, I'm gonna get up out of here. Love, peace, and hair. Deuces.